and Sewer Board yesterday for their approval, and they approved it. What we would do if this variance is approved tonight, we would draft an encroachment agreement with the applicant, and then that encroachment agreement would be presented to City Council for their approval by ordinance, because it's going into our city ditch easement. I spoke with the utility director today, and he had no issues with this, and neither did the Water and Sewer Board from last night. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Uh-huh.
So what is, the ditch is obviously underground at this point, contained in, do we know what size of pipe or?
It's a, I believe it's a polyethylene pipe, probably 4 feet in diameter.
Okay.
It was piped probably in the last 5 years and has been piped for the most part throughout the city. There are still some open sections.
So, and this might be diving a little bit too deep. Do we know, so this is, I guess, the center line, they're guessing, we don't have a surveyed line?
So this is, this one is an actual survey done by the applicant where it is. This picture is more just kind of a rough visual of where it is. This is based on our GIS, which can get skewed based on where the plane took the picture and that kind of things. But this one is accurate.
So it's offset by a couple feet towards the house?
As far as this picture goes, yeah, more or less.
Does the city ditch predate the subdivision of this area?
So that I'm not sure. This property was part of the original Englewood, so 1903. And I believe, I think the applicant knows a little more about the ditch, and he could probably answer some questions about it whenever it comes up.
Do we not have the picture you put up there that shows the alignment of the ditch?
We do not.
No, that one I thought about putting in today, so I'll be happy to leave it up there.
Okay. I mean, a lot of this falls under the water board, is kind of what I'm thinking. So
Yeah, I mean-
that's the only reason we're addressing the back. But I guess some of my thoughts is, why not just move the garage 6 feet back and encroach 3 more feet?
I believe the applicant, with talking with the utilities director, I think this was kind of meeting the middle ground of all of that. Like I said, he can probably speak a little more to what the deal was with the water board. But as far as my impression was, this is kind of what the best case scenario was.
Okay. Any other questions for staff at this point? All right. Thank you, sir. We might call you back. If the applicant may please come forward to testify in the case. Please state your name and address to the secretary who will administer the oath.
All right, Ryan Shaw, 3145 South Sherman Street.
Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that you will tell the truth in this proceeding before the Board of Adjustment and Appeals?
I do. So the reason that the variance was requested, even though the water board is approving an encroachment on the ditch, is they still need access in case they ever needed repair. So my initial plans, my architectural and engineered plans that we had here being logged when we found out that this easement, in fact, existed 15 feet downhill and 10 feet uphill. Downhill being the side this garage is going on.
Right.
So that affected things as well. It didn't affect the 525 square foot addition we're doing off the home, but it did affect where the garage was placed. So what I did is I shrunk the garage from an oversized 2-car or 3-car garage, squeezed it as far over to the north side of the lot as we could, because that ditch does run on an angle. And then applied for this variance at the recommendation of the utilities director so that they could still get a bucket in and repair that 4-foot PVC culvert if they ever needed to. So that's the reason we positioned it where we did, and why we were trying to keep that encroachment, 5 feet and under. The one other point when you were asking about the site plan that you see there is a site plan that I had done by a survey company that found the center of the ditch because it's actually exposed to my north. Okay. So they found a center line, and that's how they did that site plan that you saw there. So that is accurate.
Okay.
It's based on an ISP. And I acquired an exhibit and a legal description at the same time, which the water board used, in their assessment and their determination to approve it last night. Then as far as the ditch age goes, I see it on a plat map as far back as 1940, I think was the furthest back that I saw it. My house is built in 53, so I don't know if that has bearing or not, but I did see, I think 1942 is the oldest plat map I saw it on. But on that plat map, it doesn't actually go through my backyard. It goes up onto Grant Street. And when they were covering it, my understanding is they cut it through my yard at that point. And my house and the 3 houses to the north had petitioned to keep it open at some point. That's why it was more recently covered than the rest of the neighborhood. Everything you see running under the other homes there and under other garages, they may have not even known that was there when they built. But because mine was open up until 5 or 6 years ago, whatever it was, we were aware of it.
Okay.
Had we not been aware of it, and it may have still come up at the logging process, but I suspect that's why a lot of other houses on my block are on top of it, is because they couldn't see it like we could.
Right.
Yeah. And then, on a personal note, the necessity for the project is just not wanting to leave the neighborhood. I've been in Englewood for 15 years, since 2003, and now we have a 1- and a 3-year-old, and we're kind of on top of each other, so it's difficult. Housing market, as everybody knows, and this is just kind of the way that we can stay in 80113.
Does the board have any questions for the applicant?
I had a question. When you talked about the center line, did you mean the center line of the easement or the center line of the pipe?
The center line of the pipe is assumed to be the center line of
The easement, okay.
It's the only way that, and we went over and over that, the surveyor and I. He didn't have any other precedent in the neighborhood. The only other precedent he had in a survey, in his backlog of surveys going back as far as he could find, the only other precedent he had with that ditch actually had it at 12 and a half and 12 and a half from center line, not 15 and 10 like I'm being told mine is. So the best we could do, and it did consult with Bob and Tom and utilities, was to find the center of that pipe.
Could you repeat that again? You said the best information he had was the easement, it was 12 and a half and 12 and a half.
Right, so the surveyor was trying to find precedent in an old survey so that we could determine what would deem center line on that ditch, right? Or, find a way to find the center from pins, whatever it may be. And he didn't have any other precedent with this particular easement. So the best he could do was find center line of that pipe and use that for 15 down, 10 feet up.
Okay, I understand what you're saying now.
So how far is the garage going to be from the pipe?
It comes out to the edge of the pipe or the center line of the pipe.
The edge of the pipe?
It would be about 4 feet
Okay.
I think that's,
on one side.
well, if it's 5 and a half, 5.2, that gets you 10 feet. If the pipe is 4 foot in diameter, that's only 2 feet, right? So you're 8 feet
8 feet,
from the edge.
so 6 feet. Or what am I doing the math there? 7 feet.
I'm sure you were told there would be no math, yeah. So I think it's probably 7 to 8 feet if the pipe is truly in the center line.
Right. And initially, I had a conversation when they covered it about this, and the easement language, quite honestly, is very difficult to find and a little ambiguous, quite honestly. So regardless, initially, at one point, they wanted to be able to get a bucket between the structure and the pipe.
Right.
And then we went down this road of the 15 feet downhill easement. And so then I needed to shrink it, move it over to the side so they could create access for them, and then still allow for repair or buckets to get in there.
So when you bought the property, the ditch was there.
Correct.
Was there an easement existing for the ditch?
Well, not on my title work. So, that's.
Then virtually you granted a title when they came in and underground it.
Well, the easement can still exist even though it wasn't on my title. My beef is with my title company, its policy in 2003.
Okay. And they would have an easement by procedure.
Has nothing to do with you guys. It has to do with me possibly filing a claim against my title insurance policy from 2003.
Okay.
Because the easement was not on there.
Okay.
But it doesn't change the fact that the easement exists.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Any other questions at this point? Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you.
Are there any persons present who wish to speak in favor of this request? No one indicates that. Are there any persons present who wish to speak in opposition of this request? If you could please come forward. And if you could state your name and address and be sworn in by the secretary.
Do you swear or affirm, under the penalties of perjury, that you will tell the truth in this proceeding before the Board of Adjustment and Appeals?
I do.
Please state your name and address.
Vicki Hoffman, and we own 4630 South Bannock. We were a flood victim, so this is kind of near and dear to my heart. I have a couple of issues with this. Unfortunately, not you.
If you could just talk to us.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. That's just, the procedure.
A couple of issues with this is the drainage is already an issue within the city. Pipes are under, they're too small. We have a runoff issue. And in some of the drainage studies that I've gotten, it specifically talks about not transferring a drainage problem from one area to another. And because this is a city ditch and there's pipes, that's partly why I'm against this. There's also been flooding in that area, and the more structures we create, the more problems the city incurs. I also think that some of this is quite backwards. The Water and Sewer Board met yesterday to discuss this. The Director of Utilities is leaving, and City Council hasn't even heard this. So it seems kind of like City Council should have heard this before any of this else proceeded. I'm also concerned because the grade of the alley and the garage is susceptible to flooding. The alley is overgrown. It's very skinny and narrow, and if the city needs to come in and repair anything, they're going to require a lot more room to do this, just like the sinkhole. I mean, the sinkhole has grown because of the repair needed. So that's why I'm in opposition of this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any other people present who wish to speak in opposition of this request? Ma'am, if you could please come forward, state your name and address, and be sworn in by the secretary.
Do you swear or affirm, under the penalties of perjury, that you will tell the truth in this proceeding before the Board of Adjustment and Appeals?
I do.
Please state your name and address.
It's Marcy Brown. I live at 2980 South Sherman in Englewood.
Thank you.
And I'm in opposition of this garage being built the way it is. I don't know if any of you have gone down that alley, but I have, and it is so overgrown. There are bushes on both sides. There is literally some furniture on the side of someone's house, toys, and as Ms. Hoffman said, I don't know when the last time that alley was graded, because if you go down that alley, you will see like grass. It could be grass or weeds, I don't know, but when you drive down, you see grass or weeds, and you can keep going down. And we in Englewood have had plenty of drainage problems, even where I live, and I live off a hill. And I'm afraid that we're going to get more drainage problems if this garage is okayed. I live right by a drain, and all it does is swirl around the drain. And now you're looking at a ditch and a very, very narrow alley. So I don't know if city trucks could get down. I don't even know how a pickup truck or like Waste Management would get down that alley. So I think that's something to consider. And again, my main issue is drainage problems. We have had a lot in Englewood. We are still getting complaints about drainage going into people's homes, and so that's why I'm opposing this. Okay?
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Thank you.
Are there any other persons present who wish to speak in opposition of this request? Let the record show there's no one else. Staff, do you have any additional comments?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of do a little of addressing of the comments provided. As far as any sort of building, regardless of variance or not, it's reviewed by all city departments, two of those being Utilities Department and the Public Works Department. So for any sort of structure, as I can't remember which one of our opponents had said it, but yes, there is a requirement to make sure that, it is not draining onto neighboring properties. It's meant to drain onto, city right-of-ways, whether that's the alley or the street. As far as the garage goes, that'd be the same requirement. If the issue with the city ditch wasn't there and they could, build it back 3 feet, that would be the same situation where that is. I mean, I'm honestly sympathetic to any sort of drainage requirements. Our Public Works Department does have, scheduled gradings of all the alleys. As far as when the last time they did it or when the next time they'll do it, I can't speak to that, but that's all I have.
What's the square footage of this proposed garage, and what's the maximum square footage of garages in the zone?
This garage is a 20 by 22, which my math is 440? Yeah, look at that, no calculator. As far as maximum, 1,000 square feet is the maximum.
Okay. Any other questions for staff?
When we do this motion, because of needing to go to the city council yet, are we going to make it contingent on that? We'll modify the motion?
That would be my recommendation, is approval with conditions contingent upon city council approval. That way it kind of all either flows good together or all is denied together, so.
Can I address that? I would make it contingent upon the encroachment agreement being approved by city council. And just for a little bit of edification, the city ditch was built back in the 1800s. Okay. It runs from approximately Chatfield Reservoir all the way to Harvard Gulch. It's a water supply ditch, not a drainage ditch. And it does have some downstream users still that take water from the ditch. It actually used to run from Chatfield all the way across I-25 into Washington Park and further north. But when T-Rex came through, they took the pipe out above I-25, which was just east of University Boulevard, between University and Colorado. I don't know if you remember seeing that large pipe, but that was the city ditch. So it's actually a water supply system, and we have water rights on that ditch. So it does not collect storm drainage water of any kind, nor does it act as a drainage system.
The board have any other questions? Thank you, sir. I'm going to close the public meeting. So the public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. Make a motion that case VAR 2019-009 be approved for a variance to encroach 3 feet into the 6-foot rear setback for the construction of a detached garage contingent upon approval of an encroachment agreement by the city council.
Second.
All right, discussion. Anyone?
Seems pretty straightforward to me. I mean, it's a compromise on where things go. It's worked out with the water board. If it moved 6 feet into the easement, it would be just a different problem. So it seems like a good compromise.
Yeah, I mean, the ditch helps meet that first criterion about physical condition. Other properties in the zone district are allowed to have garages of larger than this size, so there's that there, and yeah,
I'd say the uniqueness, and if there's other considerations that are beyond the things we look at, then it goes to council and they think about that.
I agree, and just from now that we finally have something in my wheelhouse of work that I've done, I think it's beneficial that the garage is pushed into the corner for the simple sake that if at some point they want to enlarge the pipe, they have a lot of room to put a bigger structure in there. It also provides access for the city to get in and out of the backyard. I walk by the ditch, the part that's open. So it does receive some stormwater from just the rain, but I agree, it's not there to convey stormwater. That's a totally separate, different system that we're not addressing. Any other? All right, let's vote. Ms. Warwick, if you want to take the roll.
Ms. Sheldorn?
Yes. Do you need me to run through the criteria? Okay. I voted yes because it meets all of the 4 criteria. The first criteria is that there are unique physical conditions that exist, most prominently the city ditch easement that has been on the property since, it sounds like, the 1800s. The second criteria, the variance is consistent with the intent of the zone district. It would not create any public health, safety, or welfare issues and has no impact on the intent of the municipal code. The third criterion, that the variance will not permanently impair the use or development of adjacent conforming properties or alter the essential character of the neighborhood. The neighborhood is comprised of single-family residents, which already have detached garages, and it also meets the fourth criterion in that the variance is not a self-imposed difficulty or hardship, as the city ditch has been there since before the city was incorporated.
Mr. Taylor?
I voted yes for the reasons stated.
Mr. Friesen?
I voted yes for the reasons stated.
Ms. Schmitz?
I voted yes for the reasons stated.
Mr. Rieger,
I voted yes for the reasons stated.
Chair Finn.
I also voted yes for the reasons stated.
Motion passes 6-0.
So case VAR 2019-009 is now closed. The public hearing for case number VAR 010 is now open. This is the property at 3701 South Broadway. They are requesting a variance to reduce the required minimum number of vehicle spaces for automobile service station from 2 spaces per pump to 1 space per pump. And I have verification of the verification of the publication and posting for the property. Staff, if you could give us the overview.
Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that you will tell the truth in this proceeding before the Board of Adjustment and Appeals?
I do.
Please state your name.
My name is Brooke Bell. I'm a senior planner with the Community Development Department. Good evening. As mentioned previously, the case before the board tonight is case VAR 2019-010, and that is a variance to reduce the required minimum number of vehicle stacking spaces for an automobile service station from 2 spaces per pump to 1 space per pump. And let me just get everybody oriented here. Get my glasses on. Okay, subject property is at the southwest corner of West Kenyon Avenue and South Broadway. It is currently a 2-story office building that holds the administrative offices for a medical clinic. It's actually 2 parcels, and I can show you this in the next, it's 2 parcels. There's this northern parcel that contains the building, and then there's another parcel that is elevated that serves as additional parking for the building. The zoning around the property on north and south on Broadway on the west side, that is MUB2, which is general arterial mixed business uses. And as is the zoning on the east side of Broadway. But once you get up to this northeast corner, that is actually a PUD for the Bell Cherry Hills multifamily development that was approved in 2014. As we go west of this alley, the zoning is MUR 3B, which is high-density residential and limited office uses, but it's mainly residential uses. You can see an apartment there, and then more single-family or duplex-type homes on that side. So moving on to the next slide. This is a bigger view of the site, and this has the site plan overlaid onto an aerial. You can see the proposed convenience store pushed to the northeast corner of the site as zoning requires it to be. On Broadway, we actually have a build-to line rather than a minimum setback. So the build-to line is a maximum of a 0 to 5 setback. And then you can see the location of the pumps, three sets of pumps, the underground tanks, a dumpster. There will be a retaining wall along the south side and the west side, and then landscape areas, as well as parking in front of the convenience store. Here's another view of the site plan, and this one really shows the stacking. This shows how the stacking would look with the variance approved. So the stacking is measured from the rear line of the pump. This dark dot is the pump itself, and so you measure, you put 1 car fueling right there, and then you measure another 20 feet back, and that's 1 stacking space. With this layout, if there's a car fueling and a car stacked behind it, it still has the required 24 feet for both two-way traffic and backing up of vehicles out of these parking spaces, as well as backing up of any vehicles or exiting of vehicles, depending on which way they're facing. We also have the 24 feet here. In this, this is a shot of some building elevations, and because of the way the building is configured at the corner, they really needed to have four-sided architecture. 7-Elevens don't always have that. A lot of times they're backed up into a side, and they really just have a front and maybe a side. But you can see there's glass on all four sides. There's kind of a little bit of a tower feature at the hard corner. And the entrance is actually on this side. And then this would be kind of where the tower is located, but there's a pretty good amount of glass. And then there is brick and other masonry products and a canopy to blend in with this apartment building that is to the northeast. This is just another graphic that was taken out of the traffic study that was done. And really all it illustrates is the picture on the right shows how it would be with the variance and the kind of stacking that would occur, one car pumping, one car stacking behind it, with ample room for two-way traffic behind those cars and for backing of parked vehicles. If they were required to go to two stacking spaces behind the pump, there would not be adequate space for two vehicles to pass each other. And I think the applicant will talk a little bit more about what is the likelihood and reality of this kind of scenario versus this kind of scenario. In terms of the criteria, I think I covered that in the staff report, so I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any questions for staff at this point? Are we good for now?
No. We might call him back, but.
Mr. Bell, I think we're done with you for the time being.
Okay, thank you.
If the applicant may please come forward to testify in the case, please state your name and address to the secretary who will administer the oath.
Kay Stallworthy, oh.
No, you're fine.
Kay Stallworthy, 2568 South Columbine Street.
Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that you will tell the truth in this proceeding before the Board of Adjustment and Appeals?
I do. Brooke, can you help me?
Oh, sure.
So no, is this stick here?
We're going to go right.
Oh, that's okay.
Let's see. Do you want to drive from there?
Yeah, we can just go.
Right there?
Yep, PowerPoint. And then we'll just start slideshow.
The beginning. Okay.
Thank you.
There's forward, back pointer.
Oh, perfect. Good evening. Thank you for listening to us this evening. As Brooke mentioned, we're here to discuss southwest corner of Broadway and Kenyon. I will try to be brief, but I do want to cover our points. Briefly, I work with Cadence Capital Investments, the applicant. We would be the owner and developer of this site. We're a local retail development firm in Colorado. Projects that we've done are some you might recognize. We did the Sprouts and that development at Broadway and Bellevue. We did the Ferguson off of Oxford and Santa Fe, which I know you guys are familiar with right now. And that Advanced Auto Parts is in Parker. So to get to the point, we are here to discuss southwest corner of Broadway and Kenyon. It is 2 lots, and in this aerial you can see that the parking lot, which serves the second floor of the office building, is on the south, and then the office building and the parking for the first floor of the office building is on the north part. Just some pictures of the office building. So here's looking from Broadway. Here's looking from the alley, and you can see how it kind of slopes up as it goes up to the second floor. This is looking at the parking lot from the alley. This is looking at the parking lot from Broadway. So you can see it's a little bit of a grade difference. And then this is the retaining wall that separates the parking lot from the office building. It is approximately 11 feet between the parking lot of the office building and for the first floor and the parking lot for the second floor. Excuse me, sorry. So we're here to respectfully request a variance to reduce the minimum number of vehicle stacking spaces for an automobile service station from 2 spaces per pump to 1 space per pump. This is what that site plan looks like. This is the scenario without the variance. This is a very, very unlikely scenario where you would have 18 cars trying to pump gas at the same time. It would make for a very busy gas station, and most likely if you were looking for gas and a gas station was this busy, you would go to the next gas station. With the variance, this is still a very busy gas station, but it allows for movement of cars. You can get into and out of the site. There's no blocking of access points, and the parking is free and clear. I'm going too fast. Sorry. So I'm just going to run through quickly the criteria for the variance. The unique physical conditions, such as size, shape, location, topography, or surroundings, which are peculiar to the land or structure involved, which deprive the applicant of privileges enjoyed by other properties in the vicinity. This is currently zoned for retail use. We're not asking for a rezone. And like any other retailer that would need to go here, we need the parking to be at the same level and the access points to be at the same level as the rest of the site. We've also are dealing with an 11-foot grade. And so we're taking that parking lot that's elevated down to Broadway and creating a full grade. And in doing so, we are losing buildable square footage. Excuse me, I keep bumping us. We're consistent with the intent of the zone district, and we're not causing any public health, safety, or welfare issues. As Brooke mentioned, we are meeting all other requirements of the zone district. So we have I'm totally off base here. Anyway, sorry. The driveways meet all the safety and welfare that we need. It's safe for convenience for the pedestrians entering the site. It's not going to impair the development of adjacent or conforming properties or alter the essential character of the neighborhood. Along Broadway, the uses are all commercial and small businesses. Behind us, we do have residential that we are trying to screen with we will be screening with a 6-foot fence. That fence is on top of the retaining wall, so technically we're going to be between 11 and 16 feet screened from those residential uses along the alley. And then we are also trying to create elevations that meet the kind of the character of the neighborhood as the residential to the north. So here's that northeast corner residential. So you can see the brick columns and the gray that we're trying to capture in our elevations and the awnings. Here are our elevations. We can't do all the colors because we're not as big, but we are trying to keep with the intent of the neighborhood. And then finally, this is not a self-imposed difficulty or hardship. We have worked really hard on this site plan to kind of come up with ways to get enough room for those drive aisles. We've gone through 3 iterations with staff to really make it work. And this is a very atypical building for 7-Eleven, so we've squeezed it up to try and get enough room for the drive aisles. And then finally, we hope that you can approve this variance because we do meet all the other zone district standards for landscaping, setbacks, building placement, and vehicle circulation. We are providing an amenity for the neighborhood, and we are consistent with other fueling stations in the city and Denver metro area. And I'm here for questions, and I also have our architect here if you have technical questions.
Perfect. Does the board have any questions for the applicant?
I do. When you were going through the first criteria, you made a statement that the grading caused a loss of square footage, and I'm having trouble wrapping my head around that.
We have to build a retaining wall, and the retaining wall has to be on our property. It can't go, it's an 11-foot retaining wall, and so we can't go into the next property. We have to build, you would put caissons? Caissons? I want to make sure I'm saying it right. Caissons into the next property, which we want to be able to build the entire thing on our property. And so it's, here I show you, sorry. This isn't a technical drawing, but the wall is on the south part of the property, and it's pushed the rest of the site plan north where we needed the most room. So if we didn't have to build a retaining wall, we would be able to use that to create more space and flow for the traffic.
How much space is that retaining wall taking?
I have no idea because we
I mean, it
haven't
looks like it's
constructed.
maybe 5 feet?
If he needs to come up, we need to swear him in.
Oh, okay, sorry, I'll stop looking.
But, I mean, if you'd like him to come up, we can have him come up and be sworn in.
Well, the main thing is that we don't know exactly how much because we haven't had it designed yet.
So in that, along that same line, it states that you would need to acquire an additional 40 to 50 feet of land to the south to have the proper amount of stacking.
Yeah, so the way that the code reads, and I could be saying this incorrectly, so, but they don't count for fueling stations, they don't count the person who's at the pump as being in the queue. They, you know, if you're in a line for a drive-through retail, they would count the person at the window as being part of the queue, but for some reason in the gas station, they don't count the person who's at the pump as being in the queue. So it then needs to be essentially 3 cars that are in the queue that you have to account for in the per the code. And so to get 20, 20, and 20, you need 60 feet, so you'd have to go 2 lots down.
So in essence, and I love a good retaining wall, but in essence, the retaining wall alone is not making this to code.
I guess that's right, yeah.
Do what?
You'd have to have
You have a question?
60 feet versus 40 feet, so they're 20 feet short no matter what.
Right, that's what I'm, right. Do we want the architect up for any reason? Any other questions for the applicant? I don't think there's any other, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Are there any persons present who wish to speak in favor of this request? No one's indicated so. Are there any persons present who wish to speak in opposition of this request? Nobody is here to speak in opposition. Staff, any additional comments?
Not unless the board has any questions for me.
Come on back up. I think we have questions for you.
So do you know why the 2 stacking versus 1 was enacted in 2004? I mean, what was the thinking on that?
I was not here in 2004, but I did do a little bit of research, and because most, if not all, gas stations in the city of Englewood would not meet the 2 stacking space requirement. And the last gas station that was built here was the Safeway on Logan and US 285. That does not meet the 2 stacking spaces either. That was built in 2002. This code change was made in 2004. Sometimes when codes are changed, there's some standard language that comes from other places. Perhaps that came from a different kind of community that was more suburban, or it was more like a truck stop. I'm not exactly sure. But so this particular code has never really been reality tested. I would say for the gas stations, existing gas stations that are in the city of Englewood, that some of them have less space than what is being proposed here, and that can be a problem. But most of them, if they have this much space or even a little bit less, have not been an issue. I can think of one that when I go in there, it just kind of seems chaotic. But this scenario does not seem untenable from a traffic standpoint. Our traffic engineer also looked at this, as well as external effects around the site to see if there would be any issues with things backing up into the streets, and he did not have any issue with that. But that's the only kind of history on it I can give. Not sure exactly where it came from. I have found it in another community, but I've also not found it in City of Denver, City of Littleton. That I have not found any requirement for stacking.
Any other questions for Mr. Bell at this time? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm going to close the public meeting for VAR 2019-010. Is there a motion?
Move the case VAR 2019-010, 3701 and 3733 South Broadway be granted a variance to reduce the required minimum number of vehicle stacking spaces for an automobile service station from 2 spaces per pump to 1 space per pump.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, discussion. I think that our point, I think that was the retaining wall alone would not give them the 20.
I mean, the retaining wall is taking up 2 or 3 feet.
Right.
Retaining wall is not going to be the length.
Yeah, it's not going to be, right.
That's, that I appreciate that, but that's not what's making.
And I think the point they were making is if you want the extra 20, you got to buy 50.
Right.
So, I guess my biggest heartburn on this is, why was it set up for 2 to begin with? And essentially we're changing the code here. On the other hand, it's everything else that's already working in the city, but that's my heartburn.
Yeah, same here. And especially that.
I'm not here to rewrite the code.
Right.
And there's people who do that or should be able to do that.
And perhaps this needs to be visited. I don't think we're inferring anyone here. But yeah, I find it is interesting that the code changed in 2004 and we haven't had any new gas stations constructed. So perhaps the city needs to revisit that. Maybe that's part of it.
I mean, overall, I think it's reasonable, and I don't have a problem with it. The flip side is, why is it written that way, and are we going to change that?
Right. Yeah, and for me, with the criteria, I can't get past 1.
Yeah.
That's the problem with this, is that I understand there's a slope, but you're dealing with it correctly with the retaining wall.
If it was a perfectly flat lot, it would still need a variance.
Exactly.
Yeah, that size lot wouldn't allow it either way. I mean, the grading thing is really not the issue.
So could we, I agree, I think this is a code change, and I'm struggling with it too, and it's not up for us to change policy, but could it be argued, I don't think the grade gets us there, but one of the things listed in the first criterion is size, and they are combining 2 lots, and they still don't have the size to meet the stacking requirement, which clearly is not a good requirement for an urban environment.
Yeah, because I thought about that when I read through, but you get over that by buying more lots. I don't think, to me, the size is not I mean, then everything suddenly matches the size that you should be able to build a huge house on a tiny lot and things like that. I'm just not sure. I think the lot seemed typical. It's just they need to add another one. That's my thoughts. Any other takes on that?
Fewer pumps, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I like the way it looks. I think it's a nice design, but yeah, I get stuck on, to me, it's the first one. And then,
Yeah, it's just a matter of the way it's written.
yeah. Any other discussion, or should we vote? All right, I guess let's vote. Ms. Warwick, if you could take the roll.
Ms. Sheldorn?
No.
Mr. Taylor?
I voted no. I did not see that the first criteria was met, that there were unique physical conditions that required this variance.
Mr. Friesen?
I voted no for the reasons stated. Basically, would be changing zoning to make this happen.
Ms. Schmitz?
I voted no for the reasons stated.
Mr. Rieger?
I voted no for the reasons stated.
Chair Finn?
I also voted no for the reasons stated, and I think perhaps, as Mr. Bell said, that this hasn't been tested, perhaps this was the test, and now this needs to be looked at to be possibly changed.
Motion fails 0-6.
So I will close the public hearing for VAR, or the hearing for VAR 2019-010. Approval of minutes. I need a motion and a second to approve the minutes from June 12th, 2019.
I move to approve the minutes from June 12th, 2019.
Is there a second? Do we have enough?
I second.
How many do we need?
I was not here.
Yep. And then everyone else was here, so we have enough for a quorum.
This was for the last.
Perfect. The last meeting.
Yeah, I was here.
Okay.
All right.
Seconded? I'm sorry.
Yep, sorry.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So that passes. Approval of finding for fact, case VAR 2019-004, 3063 South Fox Street. Need a motion and a second.
Move to approve the findings of fact for case VAR 2019-004 at 3063 South Fox Street.
Second.
All right, all in favor for approving, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes. We had two cases. Where's the second?
It should be on there.
It is not on this one I'm looking at.
Just did 004, right?
Correct.
It's 008.
Yeah.
Am I not looking?
Yeah.
Yep, so the next one is 008.
Yeah.
Give the address.
It is 2990 South Sherman Street.
All right, so approval of finding for fact of case VAR 2019-008, 2990 South Sherman Street. Need a motion and a second? Do we not have it?
Did it not come through?
We might table this.
I only see 04, I don't see 08.
08.
Oh, it's above it. It's above it.
Is it is it first? Minutes.
It's the
Minutes,
minutes.
June 12th.
Yep.
The first thing is the
Finding of fact,
public
Yep.
hearing for 004,
correct.
and then the vote follows that, and then the next case was 008, right after that.
Yeah, that's not in our.
That's not in our
Not in
packet.
the packet.
How did you get the special packet?
Yeah, you got a special one.
All right, so we will not be able to vote on that until we get that added, or we get a chance to review.
Table it to the next meeting.
We'll table it till the next meeting.
We do an email vote?
Yeah, we can do email.
And
We did that on case, where was it?
a previous one. Sorry, I'm trying to get back to page 1, and this is taking a while.
It was the February one.
Next, election of officers. Who would like to speak and enter the race? Or nominate someone, I guess is what it is.
Second.
Second, third.
So, anyone
Will you
else?
accept that?
I guess we need a vote, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Do I need a motion or just a vote, straight up vote? That's all I need, right?
Or do we need just like the full slate, then vote on the full slate? Or?
Then we'll vote on the vice chair.
Okay.
So,
So it's Mitch and Friesen, you,
What? I nominated Tom,
okay.
and I vote yes.
She nominated Tom. Somebody do a second.
Second.
There we go. Now vote.
Yes.
we'll do a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? I wouldn't be opposed to being opposed. I will do it again.
Thank you. Yay.
Election of vice chair.
Randy, yeah. A second.
There's a motion and a second.
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Who seconded? I'm sorry.
I second it.
Abstain.
Any opposed? All right, there's our vice chair. This is the fastest part of the meeting. No one wants to. Staff's choice.
We don't have anything to add. Shelley, do you know if we have any cases
We
next
have
month?
2 variance cases in August.
Oh,
Double.
Yes.
Oh, it is.
It is August.
Man, I was hoping it was good. We were going to skip a month, but okay.
Yeah, we seem to be back on. All right, 2 cases in August.
I have nothing else to add. Will?
All right.
Shelley?
Dugan,
No report.
nice. Thank you for your hydrology tonight.
Yeah.
Background.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was good. Board members, we have anything? All right. I'm still trying to find a blank spot in our schedule to have a little get-together, just a social
It's
hour.
almost,
I know, it's almost back to Christmas. So I was hoping we wouldn't have a meeting, but we'll find a patio somewhere. And that's it. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, sir. You're welcome. Yeah, we could do mine.